I honestly didn't think Pragmata was going to do much more for me when I first heard about it. There was a bit of what I would call reveal fatigue. Something was quite promoted over a long period of time. I'd seen a lot of emphasis on just the mechanic of the game, and I had, I think, a lot of reservation or concerns that it was going to be a gimmick, and just the long release cycle of the game being in gestation for so long. It made me feel like, oh, there's worry here. They're trying to fix something that isn't quite there, which we've seen over and over and again. But after actually playing it, I gotta say, I think Pragmata understands something that I think a lot of other games often forget, and it's that not every game needs to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes it just needs to deeply understand why the wheel works, and that's the crux of my video today, and why I wanted to talk about Pragmata. It caught me off so much, in terms of like the general gaming landscape right now. So like my initial expectations with this, and I share. I'm not outside of the blame of this myself. I definitely, in a lot of ways, will look to. I think there's something to be said about how much the industry and the zeitgeist of the conversations of games focuses on genre defining or never before seen or new innovations in some ways, with whatever a game may be. And there's like a hook or an itch for that. But what was funny was, again, on the onset of what my expectations were with Pragmata, there was such a familiarity to it. It looked like things I'd seen before in various ways, in story beat of like companionism of like, oh, you have like the game is an escort mission in some ways, and that's, I think, one of my worries that I initially looked at, but it kind of flips that a little bit. You're playing as like a mech suit, and I've seen Capcom do that 1,000 times, in ways that I don't always resonate with or connect with. So I was a little bit adverse to that. The combat mechanics just look like, oh, here's, sci-fi things, go. And there's a lot of that in the industry, as well. And but this isn't doing anything new, and it definitely, like, on the onset I looked at that and I was like, this isn't going to do it. But that's kind of where I wanted, like, after seeing it come out and finally come to release and seeing it at Summer Games Fest last year, so much of what impressed me was the follow through on what those things were. Those were all there. You play as this protagonist Hugh, who's taking care of this AI girl that in a space station that everything's gone wrong, and you're both trying to get out. And it's on the moon, and you're just trying to get back to Earth and everything. But so you are protecting her, but in a way she's protecting you. And so it has like a bit more of like less so an escort mission and more so like a Banjo-Kazooie or a Joel and Ellie type of thing, and like in Kratos and his son, and the mechanics of it too, of the puzzle mini game, the hacking. There was a commitment to it. There was an integration of it that added to the sense of progression, that added to the sense of follow through that I think, like, often the same premise could be set on any given other game, but it's the lack of the follow through. It's the lack of the genuineness of what is being done with that mechanic or that story beat or that premise or whatever it may be. And it was such a breath of fresh air that they were doing something I know so well, but they were doing it really well. And doing something really well in this space can go a long way. Like, it develops these mechanics. They stop feeling like necessarily features or gimmicks, and more so this is the DNA of the game. That hacking aspect of it, or protecting Diana, isn't like a one-off. This is your game, and this is the premise, and it's a sweet, concise package. There's no fluffs, no frills. And it does it it's almost like a novel concept to just deliver, like, hey, we just deliver a quality, not by the book, but by the book. I don't know how else to really say it. Like, the mechanics evolve in it's very traditional in a lot of ways, but in the right ways, not in the ways of like, oh, this is redundant, this is boring, this is repetitive. They keep evolving the mechanic as you go forward in the game, and I found that so amazing. It's like the game design progresses in a way that engages you as the player, the tension and friction points are there in a way that incentivizes you to go forward. Like, you're never at odds with the game, and the game is never trying to get you to do something that is frustrating for frustration's sake. It's building around things, it's trusting you, it's expanding upon it. And that's kind of where I'm really impressed, honestly, by Capcom's understanding of what that is, because I've seen them, even I love Capcom. Like, they've done so many of my favorite games. The Monster Hunter series alone has done so much of like what I love in games and game design. And Resident Evil has done a lot of good things, most recently Requiem. But for me, that is one of the areas where I see them being so inconsistent, even within one game. Like, Requiem is great, but there are moments where it's high, and there are moments that like dip, and you're like, oh, let's get back to the highs. And it's not always the most like steady, but I love the whole package. And I think here is where Capcom with Pragmata, and it's a new IP, and it's something like fresh in that way, but again, familiar. They trust the player to understand game design, to understand the player rhythm of like, okay, here's your checkpoint, here's your upgrades, here's your trials, here's your level design pacing. You've gone this far in the level, now we've looped it around and unlocked this so that if you need to go back and do this later for collection purposes, we've eased that point of friction. And the readability of so many of the scenes and combats and moments of it, I really connect with. And like, I think they have it down in this one. Like, they were firing on all cylinders. They were setting a tight, clear-cut package of like, this is our A game, this is our spotlight, which I'm honestly just so impressed by. Like, I know that they have it in them. I know they've done, again, like, they have Street Fighter, they have Dragon's Dogma, Resident Evil, Monster, Mega Man, like so many games under their rapport. I have no doubt that they can do it, but when you see it done, sometimes it's a little surprising. You're like, oh, they stuck the landing. It's like the equivalent of seeing a massive multiplayer type of game have a clean launch nowadays. Like, you'd expect it, right? Like, on paper, but in so many times the launches, they're like, oh, we didn't expect servers to reach this load, or something occurs and they don't quite, like, they stutter at the launch of it. So they didn't stutter here. They like took off and surprised everyone, I think, in an area where everyone was expecting not that. I think we're so framed all the time to be burned by new IP, by new efforts, by anything like that, that when you see something succeed like that and do it, execute well, it's very refreshing in its own way. Not in the same way as like an innovative way, but just like, hey, wow, okay, you said you were going to do it, you did it. And that's why I think not everything, kind of looping back to my initial crux of this, not everything needed to be revolutionary. Not everything needed to be the next big thing or endless like escalation or like open world. They don't need to break the box to make this successful and amazing. They just needed to do what they did. They needed to execute well. They needed to pace well. They needed to know their ideas and do and execute on their ideas with confidence, and then trust the player to build off of those strong fundamentals and just play it. Some of the things I'd like to give it a nod for is like I said, the level design is fantastic for every section of the game. It's like 6 sections in total. And some of it is oddly familiar with like the Souls-like games, in that like if you look at like the amount of healing flasks you can get, or the checkpoint bonfires that you get, and the enemy patterns and behaviors, it's like its own spin on so many familiar ideas, but again, done with an understanding of what makes those ideas work and behave so well. I had a weird moment where I was thinking of games that also had kind of like, the game plays with themes of obviously like parental nature of like what an adult would do for their for their child or for a younger one. And there's obvious comparisons to like father-daughter here, but like I also took it as like just a general thing of like, oh, this could be an older sibling, this could be an uncle with their niece or nephew. And other games in recent memory that have done things like this is the God of War franchise. Donkey Kong Bonanza reminded me of this. There's fan art of that, and Death Stranding is another one. And it's like, I imagine they like Donkey Kong and Death's and Kojima and Capcom all had, it's like they all had the same premise handed to them, of like same themes handed to them, and they each had such wildly different iterations or perspectives of what to execute on that, with this like pairing companion kind of dynamic. And it just, like, there's so many games that do it, it's not like something special there, but it was just like a fun moment in my head of like, oh yeah, you can take one idea and expand on it in so many different ways. And the way Capcom did it is so Capcom, but it's also so awesome and right and cool. And like, I so many times went through so much of this of like, I was just like, I'm just going to do what I need to do and finish the game because, you know, I want to experience it and play it. But so many times I had to be like, wait a second, I should have been doing the next mission. I just found myself upgrading stuff, tinkering, and doing the fun trials on the side because they were fun. Because it was an easy, there was no like, oh, you got to go do this, 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 and this. It's like, no, you're upgrading, you're back at base, you're refilling on stuff, you're optimizing things. I'll do it a trial or two. I'll do 3. I'll do 4. Oh crap, I was supposed to do another mission. What happened? And then you go do the other mission, and you're like, I want to do that again. I'm going to go back in the middle of that and I've unlocked more trials or whatever it is. It just, everything felt like aligned and feeding into a larger like effort of what this game was. And it was nice to be reminded of that. It was nice to be reminded of that, like a game like Pragmata can surprise you, not necessarily in doing something wholly new, but doing something in a familiar way, but like treated with care, that feels, which is something that you don't see often. That feels new in its own way. and honestly, in an industry that's like, I feel like constantly trying to reinvent itself so much, there's something refreshing about a game that just simply wants to be well made. And just, I am over the moon with it in a lot of ways. It's not like the best game ever, but I loved my time with it. It was such a, like, I spent like maybe, I think 10 to 12 hours roughly. And I could easily go back to it and play some more if I wanted. I'm in a bit of a cycle of I have to get through a few other games, but I love that I could just go back to it when I like, and just expand more on some of those trials that I did, or start a new game plus and play some of those familiar areas with the knowledge I know now of how to do new things or do more elaborate hacks or like combat mechanics or anything. Yeah, no, I hope that they, and the story beats, I don't want to spoil, but like, I was very surprised by how much I loved what they did with the story. It's a very simple but direct and clear and like relatable story, and they play with the themes of like, again, like fatherhood or just protective sibling. Like I related, I don't have any kids, but I definitely related from the side of like being an older sibling and looking out for my younger brother, and the things you do and don't do in the situations like that. And like these little character moments that Hugh has in it like really resonate with me. And I recently just did an interview with the actor that performed for Hugh, David Menken, and it was such a, I would say like I connected with it even more after that, because in hearing his perspective on it and the significance he brought to it, like really added that like sincerity to the role. It's like, it's such a feel good thing. Again, the game is such a feel good thing. The story is such a positive light, I think, in this space, and it nailed it on all fronts. And I'm very excited to see what they do with Pragmata, to see a new IP get created under the Capcom portfolio, and hopefully to have breadth to be revisited maybe at some point, or even if it doesn't, it still stands on its own 2 feet. And I would easily recommend this to folks, I think, that are interested in what they see, if they take a look at the game and if it's at all like in that realm of interest for them. Yeah, it's really refreshing, and it's really cool to see a game like this, one, perform, and two, just knock it out of the park and hit the home run. But this is my opinion. I'm very curious what others took from it, if you liked it, if you didn't, and if you took away kind of like that similar notion of like whether chasing or like when games feel familiar, or they feel new or refreshing in different ways, and what that means to you. Please let me know. I'd love to hear. But until next time, we'll catch you on the next segment.